good day. I'm Sarah and I'm here. This is my final video that really focuses on furlough. I know you're all really upset about that, but for the last 3 to 4 weeks, I've been focusing on furlough. Now, I'm not sure if you're overseas, if that's happening in your country as well, but certainly a lot of countries have been on the job retention scheme where the government's been contributing towards their salary, 80% with a cap payment, and then I think they've been reducing that, or there might be some announcements coming out about reducing that furlough payment. And it's important to remember that if you have been furloughed, it's very much not a personal decision. It's about protecting companies, and it's something very, very unique. I don't think I've ever heard of it. I've never even heard of this word before. So over the last few weeks, because I've been figuring this might be coming to an end, I have been talking about how you can use this time productively for your career. Because let's face it, whatever time we have, whether it's in quarantine or lockdown or not, we don't get this time back. We don't get time back. It's a valuable commodity that we don't always get back. So it's really important to make the best use of that time without putting ourselves under too much pressure. So what I have talked about over the last few weeks, and just to recap, is understanding that we're all in a very different place with the lockdown. I know that for some of us, we don't have time to think about anything because we may be homeschooling children, we may have situations at work. I'm actually going to restart the video, sorry, I just wanted to check that it was running because I couldn't see the timer. Yeah, so for many of us, we've got a very different experience of quarantine, lockdown, whatever word you want to choose. So notwithstanding the fact with any change, every human being reacts slightly differently to change. You know, I certainly know from amongst my circle and the people I've been talking to, sometimes people feel okay with it. Sometimes people have felt very down, or emotions have overcome them at a certain time, and that's completely normal. And you may be feeling that in your career, if you've been furloughed, that it feels a bit up and down at the moment. But if that's the case, then what I was saying before, just before I briefly paused the video, was that time is a precious commodity, and time is something that we don't get back. And I know this has been a very challenging time, a very difficult time for lots of people. Some people, as I say, have been homeschooling kids. Some people haven't been furloughed and are possibly busier than they've ever been. Some sectors have been really affected, like tourism, for example, and perhaps the hospitality industry. Other sectors, such as, let's think like legal perhaps, or pharmaceuticals, have been really, really busy. And certain departments have been really busy, like supply chain, operations, HR, because there's so many new policies that need to be written. There's so many goods that need to be distributed more quickly than ever, because it takes longer for the goods to get through the processes they need to get through. So there's not a one-size-fits-all to the lockdown. There's not a one-size-fits-all to furlough. And actually, whether you are on furlough or whether this is just an opportunity to review your career, there's never a good time and there's never a bad time. And you may well have felt, do you know what? When am I going to get this downtime again? Notwithstanding any personal challenges you've had, any professional challenges you've had, when am I going to get this time back where I'm actually forced to be at home, for longer than I would do usually? And it does look like, whatever the science is telling us, whatever we think about it, that for many of us, unless you're in certain countries, like I think South America and certain parts of the States are still being quite strict, as well as other countries, it seems as though governments are easing lockdown. And now, for example, in the UK, you can meet groups of six people, and you can meet them outside, still social distance, or physical distancing as I prefer to call it, but you can start to meet people. You can go to outdoor markets. You're allowed to go to parks, which a few weeks ago we weren't allowed to do. It was much stricter than that. So I think we can see that for a lot of us, slowly but surely, the lockdown is starting to ease, the quarantine is starting to ease. So, can we still use this time productively? I guess it's, can you use any time productively? As I've said, time is a finite resource. We don't get time back. We might be able to get a friendship back. We might be able to get a refund back on a product. We might be able to get a relationship back. We might be able to get a job back or go back to it later on. But actually, time is a finite commodity, and there's never a right time, and there's never a wrong time to do something. There's never a wrong time to take a decision to move forward. So even if it's a small step, there's never a wrong time to decide, do you know what, I want something different, if that's something you've been observing. So in relation to careers, what I've covered over the last few weeks are a few subjects. And those have been, despite what I've just said, you know, obviously we're all in a different situation and some of us might be feeling very differently about the situation. This would have been, you know, or is still potentially a good time for you to reboot and refocus on your career. Some of the things I've talked about, particularly in relation to furlough, you can still keep in touch with your boss and your colleagues to maintain that connection. Perhaps you've already or could have a conversation with your boss about how your role might change and show some interest and proactivity to say, what does the company look like now? What are the services we're going to offer? How's our pricing going to change? How are we going to deal with the fact that our business is going to look very different when we go back full time and, you know, we go back bit by bit from furlough, from quarantine. So those are opportunities to have conversations with your boss, with people that are leading you or managing you, or whether you're even leading a team. Just get together and think, what was the business like now then? What is the business like now? And where's the gap that we have to climb? And what's that gap? If you're in a role, what's that gap that you can fill? How can you be a real valuable resource to your company? I mean, perhaps your role was a bit sort of bimbling along, doing okay, but now there's actually a greater opportunity for you to take on more responsibilities. So be prepared for the fact that when you go back, there might be a bit of change, but perhaps, as I've mentioned before, keeping in contact with your boss, which you're allowed to do, as long as they're not giving you work to do whilst you're on furlough, you know, keeping in touch, joining calls when you can and you want to and you're able to, and really understanding so you're in a good position when you go back to be a valuable asset to that company. And I talked about before that if you were on furlough, are there particular learning and development goals you could move towards? And maybe agreeing those with your boss. Now, there might be learning and development goals that are nothing to do with your current job, but they're things you might want to do in the future. Great opportunity to upskill, so many courses out there. Looking at your connections, for example, LinkedIn. I don't think a week goes by when I don't mention LinkedIn, but having a look at your connections, having a look at your network. Who can you connect with? Who can you send a message to? If you are thinking about, you know, do you know what? I want to change my job in the future. I want to stay in the same sector. Doing some nice, polite connection messages is perfectly legitimate. Growing your network, connecting with people, saying, hi, I'd love to connect with you on here. Saw your profile. We've got a lot in common. Love to connect with you on here. Something very simple, and start building your network. And I've got a whole course on Udemy on how to do that. That's got some really useful tips in there. So building your network is really important. So skills, LinkedIn, networks, conversation with your boss, thinking about managing your career on the front foot, self-leadership, which comes from you. It's not waiting passively for other people to do things, but coming from you. And yeah, your business might look, your organisation, your role might look different for the better or for the worse, but give it a go. Be proactive. If you feel your role might be at risk in the future, there's no harm in looking around, and thinking about other career changes. I did talk about that in my previous videos. If it is a new career, everything I've talked about here still applies. LinkedIn, network building, looking at role profiles, seeing what jobs you think, do you know what, I've always fancied doing that, what are the skills I need, and taking advantage of free, cheap training that's going on at the moment. So those are some of the things I've shared in my previous videos, which can be found on my Sarah J Coaching YouTube channel, or you can see them right here if you scroll back through my Facebook page. I tend to do these every Friday at 6 o'clock. So have a look back on every Friday and you'll see some more specific things on career. Now then, it could be something else that you think, well, you know, I have got some time, or I can find some time. Are there other things in my life that I want to improve? So have a think about the different areas of your life. For example, my relationship. That could be a romantic relationship, friends and family, house and home, hobbies, spirituality and religion. If you're not in a relationship, could it be your dating, love life, romantic life, whatever that means for you? Is it, I think I've mentioned health and fitness, finances, are there some financial goals? Really think about, there's some particular things in my life that I haven't really tackled or I'm not quite happy with. And maybe jot them down. You know, you don't have to tackle everything at once, and I'm not a big fan of that, because sometimes when we make a change, for example, if I make a change in my finances and improve my finances and my financial control and management, that often has a knock-on effect in my relationships, because it might reduce stress and I might feel, do you know what? I'm financially secure enough, I feel like I could go out on dates and do this, that and the other. So have a look, and you don't have to bite everything off, but maybe there's a few areas where you think, yeah, I probably have ignored that decluttering that needs to happen. And you know what? Yeah, I could be commuting soon. I could be back at work full time. So yeah, I should really think about, you know, getting into that and doing that thing that's been nagging on my mind. So think about those areas of your life. Write down a couple of areas or an area that you think, right, okay, let's have a look at it. What's going well there, but what's not going so well? And if I look back in a year's time or 6 months' time, when I'm back at work or doing what I'm doing, running around, maybe like we used to, who knows how long that's going to take, but what would I regret about not doing now? So almost think about yourself in the future, a few months, a year, and think, do you know what? If I haven't tackled that or made some progress towards that in that time frame, I am going to kick myself, because there's nothing worse than looking back and thinking, oh, I regret not doing this, or I regret doing that, or wasting time of that. So have a think about it, write down that area of life and think, this is what I want, and be really honest with yourself. Write it in a notebook, nobody else has to see it. Carve some time out for yourself to do it. Maybe, you know, if you've been cooped up with your family, you realise, do you know what, if I'm going back to work, I realise that I want to spend more time with my kids and my family and do some quality activities. And think about, what do I want? And discuss it with your family, discuss it with your partner, and say, well, how can we build this in? You know, a couple of hours doing this together, or going for walks, or whatever it is. You know, maybe even think about, this is what I'm not going to miss about lockdown. This is what I am going to miss. Do like 2 columns and go, do you know what? This is really what I didn't like. This is what I did like. Perhaps you didn't like being cooped up with your family all the time. Perhaps you didn't like only being able to exercise once a day. Perhaps you didn't like the uncertainty of work. But maybe you did like the time for self-reflection. Maybe you did like the fact you could spend more time with your kids. Maybe you do really love working at home. So these are all reflections. You know, look at an area of your life and think, what's working so well, what's working well, what's not working so well, and write down what you want. Think about, if you look back in a few months' time and thought, I didn't do this and I didn't do that, what would I regret? Then make a note of that and think about, are there some things I can change now? And write down the things of, you know, this is what I liked about lockdown, this is what I didn't like, because I know I'm very fortunate. I've been able to get some peace and some quiet. I've actually been really busy still during the lockdown. So in certain ways, I'm grateful that in a way my life hasn't changed, but there's no doubting that I've had more time to myself. And actually that's made me realise that perhaps I don't need to rush around as much. Perhaps I can sit and self-reflect more than I thought I was doing in the first place. These don't have to be big things. It can be, you know, what's big to me is going to be big, you know, might not be big to somebody else, and something that's a small step might seem like a big step to somebody else. It's whatever feels right for you. This isn't about pushing ourselves and exhausting ourselves. It's about doing stuff that we want to do. Studies have shown that human beings are much happier when we're working towards something, when we're working towards a goal, when we're working towards a purpose. I mean, is it about, yeah, I want to declutter that room before things go back to normal, whatever normal is. I want to read some more books. I want to do some more exercise. Actually, I've been putting off that course. I want to do that studying. I want to do some more cooking. I've really appreciated being on Zoom with my friends. I'm going to make sure that I call a friend that I haven't spoken to at least a couple of times a month, or 2 friends that I haven't spoken to for a while, just to see how they are. So, I mean, it's been reported that Isaac Newton invented gravity during lockdown. William Shakespeare wrote King Lear during lockdown. I'm not saying we have to do that. By all means, if you want to, go for it. We've all got different energy levels, and I think this lockdown has created its own sort of weird, insidious pressure in a way, because it's different. As human beings, we know that this life is different, and it takes energy to adjust and adapt to any change in our lives, and this has been quite a fundamental change. So it's important, yeah, write your bestseller if that's what you want to do, but also if you're feeling a bit like, oh, I'm not sure, then just keep it to something really simple, you know, like phoning a friend or decluttering. You know, what feels right to you? Is it writing your diary once a week? Is it about meditating five minutes in the morning? Perhaps that's something you've tried and you realise that your day's going better. Is it a relaxation goal? You know, is it, do you know what? I've realised I was running around too much, so the part of my life I want to work at is relaxation. This isn't about adding pressure, productivity. We all need downtime, but it's about really reflecting and using the time wisely and productively to go, do you know what, if I look back, what am I going to regret? What am I going to regret that I didn't do? Or where did I waste some time? Or what did I really dislike about lockdown? What did I like? And what aspects of the bits that I liked do I need to bring into my life when things start moving a little bit more? So, as I mentioned, yeah, lockdown seems to be changing. I know it's very different. We're all in different stages with it, going through different emotions. I know for some of us, have been as busy as ever. For some of us, a lot quieter. For some of us, it would have been a stressful time with our partners and our kids. For some of us, we would have loved that time. Or it's going to be a bit of everything, a bit of up, a bit of down, a bit of somewhere in between. So even though it has been incredibly difficult for a lot of people and a challenging time, because we've got this blanket of lockdown over us, and we know as human beings that something is different, it's rare, well, we hope it's rare to have this amount of time sat at home. Now, who knows what's going to happen in the future, but it looks like for many of us, some of those lockdown restrictions are going to be eased. So as I mentioned, if you are on furlough with your career, look back at the videos I did the last 3 weeks about your training, learning, development, connecting on LinkedIn, speaking to your boss, thinking about where you want your career and your current organisation to go, or thinking about all of those things for a new role that you've always dreamt of. You know, as I say, you might have learned that you love working from home, or you never want to work at home again. So that could be a massive realisation for you. Or simply look at those different areas of your life: family, health, I don't know, religion, spirituality, home, recreation, free time, whatever those things are, and think about, okay, which bit do I really think I want to tackle? What's been niggling away at me in my tummy? You know, what's my gut telling me? Is there something that I could do productively during this time? It doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be a big thing at all. It could be actually to have more time to myself and reflect a bit more and have more lie-ins, who knows. But anyway, so that is my last video on how to use furlough productively. As I mentioned, look back over the last 3 videos that have got specific, more detailed career advice, but I wanted to wrap it up with this because things are changing quite quickly. I've got another 4 Facebook Lives that are coming out. I'm doing them every Friday at 6 o'clock at the moment, whilst sort of still being at home in this way. I think they are covering a range of topics that are on the events page in my Facebook page. Things like why it's never the wrong time to change career, how we keep ourselves stuck with excuses, how when we say, I don't know what I want, we actually don't know what we want, why failure is an absolute gift. So you might like that one. It's another F word, as I call it. So those are going to be the next 4 topics on Friday at 6 o'clock, and I'll keep reminding you on my social media posts. As always, if there's a subject you would like me to cover, or some questions you'd like to ask but you don't feel comfortable asking them on a live or on my page, please feel free to send me a direct message. Please make suggestions for any topics you would like me to cover. because I'm covering things that I'm coaching my clients on at the moment. So, you know, there might be something you would really like me to cover, whether it's about life in general, careers, mindset, even relationships, stuff like that. I do coach people on that, although I do tend to focus on careers. So drop me a note and let me know. And the other thing is as well, if you look at some of my posts from yesterday, even earlier this afternoon, I'm pointing my finger down my page, then basically you'll see that I'm giving away my Udemy course, which is Career Change Secrets and Job Success, because I know that for many of us, lockdown is coming to an end. So we might be going back to, commuting and all those kinds of things we were doing before, who knows? So I thought, right, I'm going to whack this course out, give it to you for free. It's free until tomorrow, which over here in the UK is Saturday, the 30th of May, until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You can enroll and you can access that for free until that point. After that, it goes back up to its normal price, which I think is $19.99, so sterling. So not a massive amount, but get it for free while you can. And I'd love to, if some of you are doing that already, because I've had loads of students enroll, which is fantastic. Leave me a review on there. I'd love to see what you think, and what's helped, what improvements can I make in any future courses. So thanks for listening to this live. I'll post it on my page now, and it will be on YouTube as well for future reference. Have a great weekend and take care. Bye.